No. Not really. I came back in August expecting to do a whole lot of work on recovery, and what I discovered was that people came back to school and got on with it in a really, really effective, efficient way, and it actually was very humbling and quite gobsmacking, astonishing how well the young people and the staff adapted to the routines again.
Not particularly, it's nice. I mean, you feel like you've not seen folk 5 or 6 months, so it's nice to see the same wee faces and see that people haven't changed. Everyone's still just themselves. I suppose people are a bit more anxious, or sometimes it's a bit strange seeing people and not seeing them in the usual circumstances, so not being able to sit next to them on the couch or offer them a cup of tea or some of the things that we would normally do that we're not allowed to do, but not noticed a change particularly.
Yes, I would say so. I think the first years are very chatty because obviously they didn't get the last few weeks of their P7, and they're so excited to see other little humans, and it's all exciting, and I think they're very, very chatty this year. I'm concerned about seniors. I think there's a lot of anxiety around, particularly because they feel as if they've got to catch up, which I don't agree with. I don't think people should be catching up. I think the whole nation has missed a lot, and we should all be starting from the same place. So I do see a lot more stress, and I think it's stressful as well for the teachers as well, because we're trying to support you as best we can.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to be foot off the gas. I had a conversation with a teacher this morning about this, in that the most important thing is people's health and well-being. I feel that the most important thing is getting kids through to the end of this year as safely and as buoyantly as they can do, because their mental health is far more important in a way than qualifications at the end of the day, because they need to be come out of this intact at the other side of it, is really what I'm trying to say. It's tough, and it's tough for everyone. I think everyone's just kind of, it's pulled us all down a bit. We're trying to pull things back up again, so it's more fun.
My biggest concern is that they're focusing too much on trying to keep pupils in school rather than trying to help the country as a whole, because they're just closing off all these places for grown-ups, trying to keep children in school, where cases are still rising in schools. So it just seems like they're trying to just avoid the obvious.
I want to leave school, I really want to be an apprentice joiner, and it's just a total shortage on the island. You know, I know people that left, you know, thinking, oh, I've got something set up, I've got an apprenticeship waiting for me, and they've left and they've been told that the apprenticeship's been postponed a year or two. You know, I'm just kind of fearful that it might happen to me. Hopefully not, but that's my kind of fear.
I think my biggest concern in all of this is how we come out of it, and predominantly for young people like yourselves and the effect that COVID has had on you young people. We get asked all the time about how COVID has affected us, and we can articulate it. And I think life experience has given me some tools where I can manage that, but I think for young people, especially coming out of COVID, and not just at secondary, I think, but it's at a from primary age all the way through, is how COVID is going to affect you in the long term, and how, so for me it's how what effects COVID has had and what lockdown effects have had on young people.
Is that we miss people, people fall out of the loop. That's my biggest issue, is that there's always kids that are going to have tons of support at home, and they'll get lots of support in terms of materials and interaction and all that kind of thing, but people who might live more remotely, who don't have access to online, and I have to say, even online is not the answer. People are the answer. It's not about a video screen. There's only so much time you can sit in front of a screen. Just as an aside, I don't know if this is helpful or not, but I've got lots of friends who work in industry who are normally working face to face with people who are people who are like at the top of their game, who are not coping. And how the hell kids are going to cope with 6 hours a day looking at a screen of a teacher trying to explain something they don't get? We need this. This is what we do. This is why we're in a building like this.
Exams and results, travel as well, and kind of future jobs.
think be more mindful of everybody else around you, like community, the elderly people that we have on the island, and actually taking the time to look after them, because there's so many people who couldn't leave their house for anything. I wasn't allowed to leave the house for the first couple of weeks because I'd been in Portugal, and then Fit got unwell. So it was the volunteers that brought me my prescriptions. Like, we couldn't actually have done that without them. So it's about looking after each other a bit better than we have done in the past, I think.
Maybe to reinforce in my lessons, particularly design manufacture, about being resilient and able to adapt to unforeseen circumstances, which is a big plus about that subject. They're learning to be creative and innovators, and whatever gets thrown at them, they should be able to adapt and go with it.
That I should never take anything for granted, that mental health is an extremely important part, and that should be really looked out for in the future. I think a lot of people are going to be suffering from that. I think they're talking about possibly 10 million people, and that's just people who have lost jobs or have had COVID and are recovering it. So I think there's going to be a lot of knock-on effects. They're cutting services, they're cutting things that people rely on, lots of people losing jobs. I think the knock-on effect to pupils that we teach is going to be quite difficult. We're a hospitality industry, so obviously depending on where we go and things locking down and how that goes, and the impact on pupils and the island in general. But yeah, definitely don't take things for granted. And I'd love to say don't get as stressed out, but unfortunately I think I'm more stressed than I've ever been in my life. But that's just with the extra workload, I think, of having to set up and stuff. So
I think the lesson we'll take from this, I mean, I already knew family was really important, but it definitely like focuses you right in on really the only thing that matters is family. Like material things, anything else really doesn't matter. It's just really your family, friends, loved ones. To be honest, when they lifted restrictions, quite a small group of people that I was desperate to see. It's really just immediate family, close friends. So it's just nice to be able to reunite with those folk. So it really focuses you in on like what's important. Definitely like a lesson I've taken from this. Obviously already appreciated the young folk at AYF, but yeah, we really missed them. And we're aware now of like how much it helps them being here and how much we love seeing them. So there's definitely some folk kind of fell off the radar a little bit. And it just really makes me like focus on wanting to help those people and wanting to help young folk.
Arran has got some great community people. You know, it's a community next to none, and I've lived in rural areas most of my life, but here I was blown away by the amount of support and the amount of positivity actually given, and people's generosity. Absolutely.
I think people started to think more again about people and about them, and maybe became a bit more considerate. Even noticed that I had to get across to the mainland for a funeral, and I even noticed it in Glasgow that people seem to just take a bit more time to think about each other. So I think that's the positive we can take out, and hopefully that at last we don't forget about it.